Hi there, my name is Greg De La Cruz, and I work as a full time copywriter, and I've done that for the last 4 years or so. But if you're curious about how I became a full time copywriter working from home, I actually started my journey in the site called HubPages. So I started my membership here back in April of 2016. So since it's already April of 2026, that would make it officially a decade, right? So I probably signed up in the middle of April, and basically I've been a member for a decade with HubPages. And I wanted to share in this video how I became a member, where I am now in my writing career, how I transitioned to Medium, and how all of that happened. So if you've been a member of the site HubPages, you might have come across this announcement from the HubPages team. So back in November, I got this email that said, important announcement about the future of HubPages. So essentially, what they were trying to say is that they were shutting down the site and you could no longer earn from the site after January 15 of 2026. So I recently got my last paycheck, and to be honest, it wasn't really that much. But this was when I got this email back in November of last year. This was such devastating news because I had been writing for a decade on this site, and I essentially used it as my online portfolio for writing. Aside from the actual websites, the actual clients that I had, this was a way for me to showcase different styles of writing, different genres, different industries. So it was hard on me when I saw this news. I opened this email back in November. The good thing is, though, was that since 2023, or was it 2022? I'm not so sure anymore. I decided to open a Medium account, and it was only around in 2024, late 2024, that I decided to import or start transferring my content from HubPages of the Medium. So, in this video, I wanted to compare the experience of writing in Medium versus HubPages. So first of all, when you go to HubPages, right now you can't post anything because they disabled that. But luckily, you can still have access as a member of the site. You still have access to all the statistics. So I've written over 200 plus articles from here, and it was a way for me to express myself writing and also cultivate the skill of writing, especially writing the long form. What was great about HubPages in its golden age, or if it ever had one, was that it had these many network sites. For example, a network site for cooking, a site about gardening, also a site about sports. So in the sports site that I think it was called howtheyplay.com, back when that site was still operating, I had a lot of articles there. And the process with HubPages was that you would write an article, you decide what to write, what genre to write, topics to focus on, and then submit it to their editorial team, and you try to bid for a site that it's on. So if you're just writing about basketball, you try to submit your article for approval in their howtheyplay.com for the sports website. However, as I grew and in this website, as I gained more views, and as I developed a following, and as I was able to sharpen the saw, or just improve on writing in general, I no longer even had to submit my work through their regular process. They would just, after I published, a few hours later, I'd be surprised and see my articles already up in specific niche websites. So this didn't just apply to my sports articles. I also got my articles through their site that was talking about politics, also education, also a site that they were promoting which was about business careers and all of that Harvard Business Review stuff. Uh, I think that was called Tough Nickel. So I also had a lot of articles there since I focused a lot on work life, especially since during that time I was working as a full time corporate employee for a global conglomerate. So I was able to share my insights from the inside of what it was like, and just deliver. This was before the age of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, where people actually read blogs online instead of just typing in their question, and then Claude or ChatGPT would give you answers right away. So you can understand why HubPages eventually found its demise. I mean, nowadays, people just Google their question or just type it in ChatGPT or in their browser of choice, and the LLM would give them a really comprehensive answer. Some of those are inaccurate, but wasn't like Google already inaccurate in the first place, like even before ChatGPT arrived or all of these AI models arrived. So in a way, it's still the natural evolution of things, where we are now with AI overviews and where we get our answers from. It's just a more convenient space to get it from. So when I got the news about HubPages and how it was going to be discontinued, immediately I wanted to fast track and do everything I could to import my articles off the Medium. And in Medium, I was able to get a bunch of my articles up, plus some new articles. So by the time I was already focused on Medium, I was already working as a full-time copywriter for an e-commerce website that focused on car parts and dealership websites. So on a daily basis, I read about cars, write about cars, watch videos about cars, just really obsessed about cars. So I couldn't avoid writing about cars even as a hobby. So that's been my focus on Medium a lot these days. So right off the bat, comparing HubPages and Medium as a site for writing, you can't see it anymore here. We can't view the proprietary online editor they have for their content management system in HubPages. But what it was like writing in HubPages was, I didn't find it crude, or the experience was not very user friendly, but I really couldn't complain. It was better than just typing it in Microsoft Word or in Google Docs and then copy pasting the content to their site. So it was a bit easier than that, and you could easily just add images, add headings, not necessarily go to the HTML source and any of that. They had a very intuitive CMS, but it was not that user friendly, especially compared to Medium. And also, the way that worked was that you couldn't also schedule your articles back then. So right now, most of the publishing sites, like Medium and Substack, allow you to schedule your posts, right? And for Medium and Substack, you also have an email list. So you can easily just prepare like 10 to 20 blogs that you have offline. Like you go on a cabin somewhere on a very remote place, or go to a far-flung beach resort here in Cebu, and just write 10, 20 articles on your own, not even needing AI's help to do that. You could just go somewhere far away, just lock yourself in your hotel room or somewhere with really good internet and uninterrupted supply for your laptop, and also for food and water and whatever you need. and just write your heart's content, right? You could publish like 10, 10 articles on any given day, and just schedule that through Medium, or yeah, through Medium. And HubPages didn't have that, so it didn't really encourage you to pace out your articles. I'm sure some writers did a good thing, and they did the right thing by scheduling their articles in their own content calendar somewhere, but you would have to manually do that, like manually input all the articles that you need up on HubPages, and then publish it on that given day, or probably just hire an assistant to do that for you. The great thing about Medium is that you can easily schedule your articles, you can change the previews. Everything's just really simple when you write in Medium. And what's also great about Medium is you can meet a lot of, I know it's a membership site, and only members can really read the member-only stories unless they have a friend link somewhere. I can explain that in another video. But the great thing about it is that aside from finding different niches or industries that you can write about, you can also find a lot of readers who actually take the time to read your articles and engage. One of the things that probably helped lead the downfall of HubPages, although it's not exactly the thing that led to its demise, one major factor was that they disabled comments on the articles. And for those who were very active on the website, and I observed a lot of writers on HubPages were semi-retired, or those who are home-based and taking care of someone at home, and they can't really work a full-time job. So these were people who had built a community in HubPages, and all of a sudden, the way the site worked was that they lost that connection, because you could no longer comment on each other's articles. You'd have to send an email, or like use the site to connect with others. So it wasn't really that easy for the articles to get engagement. And it's an SEO thing that an article is not, there's no engagement on the article, there's no updates, so it kind of kills the SEO of that article when there's no engagement on it, so no comments. And what's great about Medium is that there's no like button on the Medium articles, but there is a clap button, and you could clap for an article if you really like it. Like, for example, I have one of these stories here that has, like, for example, the Sherlock Holmes story that I did. This is actually imported from HubPages, and I got 50 claps from someone. So the most that you can do is you can actually clap as many as 50 times on a given article. So it doesn't really show how many people clapped for it, because the maximum you could go is 50, but you could also clap just once, so you don't really have an idea of how many people liked it, but you do have you get a quick insight on how many people read it. So I think right off the bat, those are the things that set apart Medium and HubPages, and I think HubPages should have evolved with the times and allowed people to engage more in the articles.